Assalamu alaikum students, hope you all are well. Today we are going to start chapter 12, in which we are going to see and we are going to learn about different Governor Generals of Pakistan. We have already discussed the first Governor General Qaid-e-Azam in the previous videos. So we are going to start with the second Governor General, who was Khawaja Nazimmuddin. But before that, if you have not subscribed my channel, please do it and like and comments on the video. So first of all, we have to see the introduction of this Governor General, whose name was Khawaja Nazimmuddin. He was our second Governor General, and later he became the second Prime Minister of Pakistan as well. And in the introduction, we are not going to see his personal introduction, but we are going to see his introduction of his era, what he has done in the era. This is more important. So he became the second Governor General of Pakistan on 14th of September 1948, because he was the leader of the Muslim League at that time, and he was the Chief Minister of East Pakistan as well. He allowed Liaquat Ali Khan to run the country and gave him the executive powers, and the role of the Governor General became less important due to that. So the first work in his era was the Objective Resolution Committee. That Pakistan was being run on the Indian Independence Act, which was also called the Indian Act 1935. The amended version of that act was used as the constitution, and Constituent Assembly was formed to frame a new constitution. So setting up a committee which was called Objective Resolution Committee, and its work was to make the constitution as soon as possible, and it was passed on 12th of March 1949. So the main points of the Objective Resolution Committee were that the sovereignty of the universe belongs to Allah, and authority should be delegated to the state through its people under Allah's rule. So the state power should be exercised by chosen representatives, and constitution should be framed by the Constituent Assembly. Governors should align with the teachings of Quran and Sunnah for the Muslims, and minorities should have the freedom to practice their religion. Democracy, freedom, equality, tolerance, and social justice should be upheld, and a federal government structure with maximum autonomy for the units should be given. Safeguard of interest of minorities and support backward and depressed classes should be there. Ensure the independence of judiciary. Protect the integrity and sovereignty of the country. Equality of status, opportunity, and legal equality. Social, economic, and political justice. Freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, worship, and association within the bounds of law and public morality. And it was presented on 28th of September 1950 in the Assembly. But there were some reactions. It was criticized and opposed by the religious groups because they thought that it was insufficiently Islamic. East Pakistan resented on equal seats of West Pakistan in the Assembly because East Pakistan had much larger population than West Pakistan. East Pakistan also resented to accept Urdu as the national language only, and provincial politicians objected that the powers to the head of state and federal government were more, and there was less provincial autonomy. So the proposals of the report were that the head of the state should be Muslim, and there should be establishment of a House of Units with 60 members each from East and West Pakistan. There should be a House of People with 400 members, 200 elected from each wing, like from East Pakistan, 200 from West Pakistan. Religious minorities should have separate representation at both federal and provincial levels. All adults over the age of 21 should be entitled to vote, and this official language should be determined by the Assembly. So after that, the Public and Representation Office Disqualification Act, which was also called Paroda Act, was also launched. It was basically that the complaints could be made to Governor General against the corrupt officials, and then the inquiry would be done by the judges and debarring those who found guilty in their daily work. as a government official, but it was unfortunately misused by government against the opposition workers who were working in the government. Then there was another important topic which was called Liaquat Nehru Pact. Qaid referred the refugee problem as a grave emergency, and he addressed the refugee crisis by restricting free passage and introducing a visa system. This helped reduce the inflow of refugees and better accommodate those who were already in Pakistan. And there were many efforts were made to protect the minorities. Liaquat Nehru Pact was one of that effort. It is also referred as Minority Agreement, and it was signed on April 8, 1950. Each government was responsible for the safety of minority groups within its borders. Liaquat Ali Khan traveled to Delhi to negotiate peace, and the pact aimed to reduce tensions and improve bilateral relations between India and Pakistan. Restricted free passage of refugees across the border, means the border was restricted after that, and the visa system was introduced for the refugees. The agreement contributed to easing tensions and provide a framework for protecting the minorities. Now, after that, Hyderabad and Kashmir were the two cities in which, areas in which there were some attacks by India. On September 17, 1948, India attacked and amended Hyderabad as its own province. And on 5th January 1948, United Nations Organization declared ceasefire on the Kashmir war, which was going on between Pakistan and India in 1948. So after that, there is another very important question which is called Rawalpindi conspiracy case of 1951. After Pakistan's creation, about 500 British officers were hired for high-ranking positions, including first and second commander-in-chief of the army, because we had less technical army officers. So Liaquat Ali Khan aimed to replace British officers with Pakistani officers as soon as possible. So General Ayub Khan was replaced by General Douglas Gracie as commander-in-chief, and by 1951 most army officers were Pakistani. But in March 1951, a coup attempt was planned by some civil and military officers to overthrow Liaquat Ali Khan's government. This conspiracy is known as Rawalpindi conspiracy case. And General Ayub Khan arrested the conspirators, who was included Major General Akbar Khan and 14 other officers. The conspirators were tried, they were found guilty, and they were imprisoned. But on October 16, 1959, sadly, a few months after the conspiracy, Liaquat Ali Khan was assassinated while he was addressing a public meeting. So if we talk about the causes of the Rawalpindi conspiracy case, Pakistani army officers were unhappy with Liaquat Ali Khan's government because they thought it was corrupt and incapable, and high-ranking generals didn't like having British officers around. They feel threatened by their chances of promotion. And the main reason of their unhappiness was also that how the government dealt with the Kashmir conflict in 1948. They felt that the government gave up too easily instead of trying to take control of the whole Kashmir region. So these were the issues of the conspirators. Now, after that, we will see the Karachi Agreement. Karachi Agreement was signed in 1949. It was signed by the military representatives of India and Pakistan, and it was supervised by United Nations Commission for India and Pakistan. It established a ceasefire line in Kashmir after Indo-Pakistan War of 1948, and ceasefire line was monitored by United Nations observers since its establishment. So it was basically the Karachi Agreement. So now if we talk about Liaquat Ali Khan, he was the founding father of Pakistan. He is also referred as founding father of Pakistan, and he served as a lawyer and a political theorist. And briefly, he held the position as a finance minister in the interim government led by the Governor General Mountbatten. After the creation of Pakistan, he migrated to Pakistan and became the first Prime Minister of Pakistan. He also served as Foreign Defence and Frontier Region Minister until his assassination in 1951 by Saad Akbar Babrak. And after assassination, he was honored with the titles of Shahid-e-Millat and Qaid-e-Millat. So he was an important personality. After that, there is a very important question which comes in the CIAs many times, that why was it so difficult to agree on a constitution, new constitution in 1950? There was a disagreement in East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh, in 1950. They felt underrepresented in the draft proposals because the large population of the East Pakistan was not adequately represented. They desired more seats than the West Pakistani provinces, and they also objected Urdu as the main language, and they advocated for Bengali. There was also an opposition from local and provincial politicians of West Pakistan as well, because they thought that there was a lack of provincial autonomy was given, and there was more autonomy given to head of the state and the central government. And religious groups also objected, and they said that there should be more emphasis on the Islamic principles in the new constitution. So the new constitution draft was criticized by almost all the sides. So after that, we are going to see the next Governor General, who was the third Governor General, named Ghulam Muhammad, and his era was from 1951 to 55. After the death of Liaquat Ali Khan, Ghulam Muhammad became the third Governor General of Pakistan. He was the former Finance Minister of Pakistan. He was replaced by Khawaja. He replaced Khawaja Nazimmuddin as Governor General, and Khawaja Nazimmuddin became the Prime Minister. He demoted his position, and he made himself as the third Governor General of Pakistan. He was risen from the civil services to the high office, and in 1951 a 6-year plan for economic development was presented by the Planning Commission, and in 1953 a planning board was set up to review the development and prepared a 5-year plan to follow this 6-year plan. So in total there was 11 years economic development plan. In 1952, the first jute mill in East Pakistan was also established, and there was an exploration and discovering of natural oil and gas reservoirs were also started in Sui, Balochistan. Pakistan also signed CETO and CENTO. We are going to see in the later slides what are CETO and CENTO. And during 1951 and 53, there was a severe food shortage, and violent riots against the government was done because of food shortage and Qadianis. People demanded that all Ahmadis should be dismissed from the office. So if we talk about the constitutional matters in Ghulam Muhammad's era, there was a revised report of Basic Principle Committee, which was the Objective Resolution Committee, was presented by Prime Minister Nazimmuddin, and which suggested that head of state should be Muslim. House of Units should be with 60 members from East Pakistan and 60 members from West Pakistan. House of People should have 400 members, 200 from each side. And representation of religious minorities should be there on provincial and national level. Cabinet was to be responsible to National Assembly, not to the head of state. Islamic Specialist Committee ensured that all the legislation should be according to the Islamic laws. Official language should be settled by the Assembly. These proposals were also criticized and were not settled until 1956. In 1953, Khawaja Nazimmuddin was replaced by Muhammad Ali Bogra, and under Bogra's government, US, Canada and Australia extended aid to Pakistan. He set up a planning board to produce a 5-year plan to avoid food shortage, and he worked out a regional agreement called the Central Treaty Organization, which is also called CENTO. Now, if we talk about the constitutional crisis in his time, in September 21, 1954, Muhammad Ali Bogra persuaded Constituent Assembly to pass law limiting the powers of Governor General while Malik Ghulam Muhammad was abroad. So the law included the appointment of Prime Minister from the Assembly and all ministers to be appointed by the Assembly. Cabinet should hold office on Assembly's confidence, and Governor General is bound by the minister's advice. This bill was passed in the Assembly in just 15 minutes. Assembly also repealed the Proda Act, and Bogra, when Ghulam Muhammad came back, he kept quiet for some time, and then when Bogra went on a visit to USA, Ghulam Muhammad declared state of emergency and dissolved the Constituent Assembly. He chose a new cabinet, reappointed Bogra as a prime minister. Cabinet included non-assembly members like General Ayub Khan as defense minister. Maulvi Tamizzuddin, who was the speaker of the dissolved assembly, contested dissolution in the High Court. In February 1955, court ruled in the favor of Maulvi Tamizzuddin. Ghulam Muhammad appealed it to the federal court, and the federal court ruled that Ghulam Muhammad had the authority to dismiss assembly if he was not satisfied. So in June 21, 1955, elections held for the new Constitutional Assembly, and Ghulam Muhammad resigned due to illness. He was replaced by General Major Iskandar Mirza. Now, if we talk about the anti-Ahmadi campaign, in February and March 1953, serious riots erupted in the major cities across Pakistan, and it was exploited by the religious factions who demanded that Ahmadiyya sect should be declared non-Muslims, and urging dismissal of Ahmadis from public offices, including the Foreign Minister Sir Zafarullah Khan. Martial law was imposed in several cities, and government arrested leaders of groups believed responsible for the riots. On April 17, 1953, Malik Ghulam Muhammad dismissed Khawaja Nazimmuddin and 3 cabinet members, citing that they were failed to control the economy and the food shortage and the related riots. So Muhammad Ali Bogra, who was the Pakistan's ambassador to United States, replaced him, as I told you earlier. If we talk about the food shortage, Pakistan faced a severe food shortage drought in early 1953, resulting in significant food shortage and economic turmoil, and it led to the civil unrest as well. There were a lot of riots. In April of the same year, Khawaja Nazimmuddin announced that the United States and the other nations had agreed to donate 1 million tons of wheat to alleviate this food scarcity. And the economic challenges stemmed partly from reduced global demand for Pakistan's primary exports of jute and cotton, and partly from 2 consecutive years of drought. So it was the food shortage crisis. Now, if we talk about the added topics which are also very important and which you have to prepare under this topic, it was what was Maulvi Tamizzuddin case. He was the Speaker of Constituent Assembly, and he challenged Ghulam Muhammad's dissolution of the Assembly in the Sindh High Court. Sindh High Court declared that Ghulam Muhammad's decision was illegal after hearing and arguments, but the Governor General appealed to the Federal Court, headed by the Chief Justice Munir at that time, and Munir upheld dissolution based on the law of civil or state necessity, declaring on May 1955 that Governor General had legal powers to dismiss the Assembly if situation demanded. So Munir's decision established the law of civil or state necessity, enabling future dictatorial regimes to seize power under the guise of national interest. Now, if we talk about what was SEATO, it was in 1959 Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, which the abbreviation is SEATO, including USA, Britain, sometimes referred to Manila Pact in Pakistan, and Pakistan joined it in 1955. But Pakistan withdrew from SEATO in 1972 because they aimed to resist communist expansion, and Pakistan has a close alliance with the USA, and it surprised other Muslim countries, but they did not help Pakistan when they had a war with India. If we talk about CENTO, it was formed in 1955 as a Central Treaty Organization. originally known as the Baghdad Pact or the Middle East Treaty Organization. The founding members were Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Turkey, and the United Kingdom. It was sponsored by USA. It aimed to promote mutual cooperation among members countries to contain the Soviet Union and prevent Soviet expansion into the region. Headquarters were initially in the Baghdad in Iraq, but later it moved to Ankara, Turkey, but it was dissolved in 1979. Why did Pakistan join SEATO and CENTO? To gather support in resolving the Kashmir dispute, to secure the financial aid for Pakistan's development, to counter the communist threat in the region, military alliance to access military aid for bolstering defense capabilities, to fortify against potential threats from India and Afghanistan. Now, what were the reasons to leave SEATO and CENTO? If we talk about that, America viewed the alliance as solely aiming at countering communist aggression, leaving Pakistan realizing that it wouldn't cover protection from other countries like India. And there was a delay in Pakistan's ratification of treaty despite its signing by the foreign minister caused uncertainties and revealed many weaknesses. So this was the main issue. And Pakistan also sought additional aid and permanent military force for member protection, but it was denied, which weakened its position. And there was a lack of support from the organization during conflicts like in 1971 war with India, further strained Pakistan's relationship. Pakistan also felt abandoned by CENTO, especially during the 1971 war. Loans accompanied by expert teams proved costly for Pakistan and earning disapproval from the Arab world, and CENTO's failure to support Pakistan impacted negatively on the Kashmir issue as well. So these were the basic reasons to leave SEATO and CENTO. Now, the fourth Governor General, who was Iskandar Mirza, and his era was from 1955 to 56, and he was later became the first president of Pakistan from 1956 to 58 as well. In 1955, he became the acting Governor General. He dismissed Ali Bogra as Prime Minister and made him the ambassador to USA again. He appointed the Finance Minister Chaudhry Muhammad Ali as Prime Minister and forced him to finalize the constitution as quickly as possible. Iskandar Mirza basically was a politician with military background. He served in the British Army, and according to him, Pakistan needed a real decision maker leader. So Iskandar Mirza implemented the one unit policy in 1955, and we are going to see in the later slides what was that. In 1956, he introduced a constitution that allowed him to assume the presidency. However, he suspended the constitution in 1958 and declared martial law. Mirza's rule faced opposition from prominent politicians, and he became very unpopular. And he was eventually forced to resign by Ayub Khan in 1958. Now, if we talk about the 1956 constitution, which was the first ever constitution of Pakistan, and on 29 February 1956, Pakistan's first constitution was adopted. It was formally enforced on 23rd March 1956. It was based on compromised wishes of Muslim League and the United Front. Neither political party was fully satisfied. United Front dropped its objections to equal seats in the assembly and withdrew the demands of full provincial autonomy. In return, Bengali was accepted as an official language. According to the Constitution of 1956, Pakistan was declared as Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Okay, so now we have to see the president designation. He must be Muslim over 40 years of age according to the constitution. He would be elected by the central and provincial legislatures like the provincial and central assemblies. He would appoint the prime minister and the cabinet, and he would have the emergency powers and the right to dissolve the assembly on the prime minister's advice. Now, if we talk about the government structure, cabinet would be served as an advisory body. Cabinet means the cabinet made up of all the ministers. from the assembly. National and provincial assemblies would be established, and National Assembly had equal seats from East and West Pakistan. Constitution amendments required a 2/3 of majority in the assembly, and Iskandar Mirza became the first president of Pakistan. This constitution lasted only 2.5 years because it was scrapped by General Ayub Khan in 1958 when he declared martial law. Now, if we talk about the one unit scheme, Bogra proposed 4 provinces and 10 princely states within Pakistan should be joined to make West Pakistan. Like East Pakistan is 1 unit, so all of the provinces and the princely states of the West Pakistan should make 1 unit, ek Suba. So on October 1955, Mirza passed the order to unify the areas under the one unit scheme, and unification was more developed, means it considered that it will be helpful in more development and of the work efficiency, and there should be provinces should show loyalty to the country instead of their own province, and equal representation of East and West Pakistan would be there in the assembly, despite the fact that there was more population in the East Pakistan. And this scheme prevented East Pakistan to gain majority in the assembly, and it was the biggest fear of the Punjabi politicians. Scheme was highly unpopular in the East Pakistan and also opposed by the individual provinces of West Pakistan. Mirza also dismissed Chief Minister of Sindh and dissolved the assemblies of Bahawalpur and Khairpur province. And on 14th October 1955, the West Pakistan formally came into being. What were the reasons for the one unit scheme? That a single province would be more efficient to administrate and it would be cost effective. And uniting provinces would eliminate differences, prejudices, rivalries among various provinces and princely states. And there would be establishment of 2 equal wings would simplify the creation of the new constitution. There were other policies were introduced in his era as well, like the modernization in his initiated industrialization and rural development programs. Karachi airport was established. There was a modernization of railway and expanded the telephone lines. Publicized government provision in health and education service. So these were all the modernization policies. Now, if we talk about East Pakistan, it was always been poorer than West Pakistan, and people of East Pakistan were not involved in the government decision making at all. Situation got worse in 1955 because of food shortage and floods. Iskandar Mirza replaced Chaudhry Muhammad Ali with Hussain Shaheed Sohrawardi, who was from East Pakistan, as a prime minister to win the support of the people. But Sohrawardi did not want it to be a puppet prime minister, and he kept his job for a year and then he was dismissed in October 1957. Sohrawardi was an astute politician and he once asked Iskandar Mirza to hold a popularity test in the assembly, but Mirza refused to do that. So on October 18, 1957, Mirza appointed Ibrahim Ismail Chandigarh as prime minister. He also had differing views on major issues, so he was followed by another choice, who was Feroz Khan Noon. Feroz Khan was also forced to appoint a large cabinet of 26 members out of 80 in the assembly. So Mirza used constant disagreement in the government as an excuse and proclaimed martial law with himself as the president. And he thought that the chief law administrator who was Ayub Khan would work under him. So on October 7, 1958, martial law was proclaimed and Ayub Khan became the first chief law administrator. Ayub Khan was appointed as a prime minister as well on 24th October 1958. But on 27th October, Ayub Khan forced Iskandar Mirza to resign and exiled him to London. Pakistan had entered its first period of military rule and the Constitution of 1956 was abrogated. And now there is a question that why there were so many governments between 1951 and 58, because Jinnah died in 1948 and Liaquat Ali Khan was assassinated in 1951, leaving Pakistan without two key experienced leaders. Establishing a new country was very challenging and compounded by India's reluctance to share the assets on time. So managing the Kashmir issue and relations with India proved very difficult with no agreement on Kashmir's future. The formation of East Pakistan introduced problems, including the capital being located in the West Pakistan. There was a discontent and conflict over the recognized Bengali as the national language. A series of assassinations of leading figures further created problems. Inexperienced politicians struggled to govern, leading to instability, and frequent changing in governments was another issue. So these were the issues, and it's a very important question as well. Now, the second president of Pakistan and its first chief law administrator of Pakistan, who was called Ayub Khan, and his era was from 1958 to 1969. Iskandar Mirza proclaimed martial law with himself as president on 7th of October 1958, as we have learned. After constant disagreements in the government, he made General Ayub Khan as CMLA, Chief Martial Law Administrator, and Constitution of 1956 was abrogated and all assemblies were dissolved. So on 27th October, he forced Mirza to resign and exiled him to London, and the era of glorious revolution started, and the reforms were also made. And on 27th of October 1958, Supreme Court Justice Munir also validated the martial law officially. Now, what were the reasons for the imposition of martial law? By 1958, Pakistan had a weak and corrupt government facing several political problems. Between 1956 and 58, 4 prime ministers were changed, and Pakistan needed a strong army due to tensions with India. Ayub Khan also believed that the army should take over until stability was restored. East Pakistani politicians opposed that the 1956 constitution, seeking more seats in the National Assembly and greater influence in the government. The country faced food shortage and flooding. Ibrahim Ismail Chandigarh government consisted of politicians with differing views, leading to disagreements such as the one unit scheme. Feroz Khan Noon's coalition government was even more divided, with a large cabinet appointed in hopes of achieving unity. There was a high inflation rate and Iskandar Mirza's rule became unpopular. Mirza promised elections in 1957 but postponed them, fearing he would lose. Hussain Shaheed Suhrawardi planned to unite Punjab and Bengal leadership against Mirza. Ayub Khan, also as a Pakistan's defense minister, observed these developments, and Iskandar Mirza asked Ayub Khan to declare the martial law. So Ayub Khan declared it, and after that he forced Iskandar Mirza to exile to London and resign. Foreign exchange reserves were decreasing rapidly, and if the situation persisted for another 10 months, the financial and banking system would have collapsed. So the army intervened, and Ayub Khan declared martial law to handle the situation and established a strong government. National unity was under threat, and unlike India, which presented its constitution within a year of independence, Pakistani politicians deliberately delayed this issue. Initially, there was a general consensus about the constitution, but some people found the unanimous agreed ideology which was unacceptable. Bureaucracy played a significant role in the imposition of martial law. High-ranking civil officers sought to impose their own preferences on politicians, forming a permanent and powerful lobby for Governor General Ghulam Muhammad and later Iskandar Mirza. These officers maintained influence over politicians and used it to form or break up various political parties as well. Now, if we talk about the political reforms of Ayub Khan opposed the democracy of parliament by stating that it is a luxury that Pakistan couldn't afford at that time. He believed in democracy with discipline or controlled discipline. There was a political instability between 1951 and 58, and he introduced Basic Democracies Ordinance on 26th of October 1959. Basic democracies was basically a four-tier structure of elected and nominated bodies, and Ayub Khan asked for a vote of confidence from the Basic Democrats. More than 95% supported him. So let's see what was the Basic Democracies model of 1959. On 26th of October 1959, the UK introduced the Basic Democracies Order. It created a four-level system. Union councils and tehsils or thana councils were with elected members called the Basic Democrats. District and region councils with civil servants appointed by the Provincial Development Advisory Council, which was called PDAC. Initially, there were 80,000 members, 40,000 from East Pakistan and 40,000 from West Pakistan were elected, and later they increased to 120,000 members. These members formed the Electoral College for electing president and the member of central and provincial legislatures and assemblies. The first elections for basic democracies took place from December 26, 1959 to January 7, 1960. Political parties were not allowed to participate in it, and the elected Basic Democrats voted in a referendum on whether Ayub Khan should stay president or not. And about 95% obviously voted in the favor and confirming Ayub Khan as president. This allowed Ayub Khan to claim that he had the support of the Pakistani people. So it was a very carefully made plan. Now, if we talk about the basic democracies model, we can see that there was a president, and under president there were 5 provincial governors, 2 provincial development advisory councils. Under that there would be a member of divisional councils, a number of district councils, coordination committees, and then the local committees. So it was the whole hierarchy which used to work under president. President had the ultimate powers. He used to appoint provincial governors, PDAC members. 1/3 of PDAC members must be chairman of the local committees. And the power of provincial governors were they had to run the provinces, and they must obey the president. They must carry out PDAC rulings as well. Now, provincial development advisory council's powers were that they had to outline general provisions for provinces like for agriculture and education and so on. But they all had to work under the guidance of the president only. So it was a well settled hierarchy. Now, if we talk about the 1962 constitution, there was no constitution since 1958, and the new constitution was drafted by the Constituent Commission and adopted without debate in National Assembly on 1st March 1962. There was a presidential form of government was adopted, and president could be removed only by impeachment. मतलब गद्दारी का अगर मुकदमा हो तो only then he could be removed. Basic Democrats would form electoral college for electing the president and members of central and provincial legislatures. National Assembly was the only house of parliament, and president nominated the members of cabinet from the National Assembly, provincial governors, and the head of judiciary. All the laws would be made with president's approval, and even 1/3, 4th of the majority of National Assembly could not force him to approve any law. That was the most powerful president ever. If president is from West Pakistan, then the speaker of the National Assembly should be from East Pakistan. National Assembly sessions will alternately held in Islamabad and Dhaka. Urdu and Bengali will be the national languages. Both will be the national languages. Now, if we talk about the 1962 constitution in this diagram, we could see that the president powers that he can suggest any legislation and administer legislation, and president must be agreed. There would be National Assembly only house for 5 years, and there will be provincial assemblies also elected for 5 years, and they would run in the provinces. And both the assemblies could only suggest the legislations, but president must agree to the legislation. It is the requirement. Even third, fourth of the National Assembly cannot pass the law if president doesn't permit it. Now, if we talk about the results of the political reforms, Basic Democrats was a very intelligent system to legalize Ayub's powers. All political parties were not allowed to take part in basic democratic elections, and main landlords were influential and they dominated the Basic Democrats elections. East Pakistan was not happy with the president from West Pakistan and equal seats in National Assembly. They felt they were being ruled by establishment and military of the West Pakistan. Ayub Khan took 64% votes, and Fatma Jinnah with combined opposition only able to took 36% of votes in the presidential elections. Now, if we talk about the social reforms, new curricula and textbooks were developed. An extensive literacy program was launched. New schools and colleges were established. Family planning programs were initiated with the help of USA loans, using media to encourage smaller family sizes. Medical facilities were improved and nursing and training schools were established. General Azam Khan, a rehabilitation minister, settled 75,000 refugees in Karachi to address housing problems. Factory owners were asked to provide accommodation for their workers. Strict laws were enacted against black marketers, smugglers, and hoarders. Prices of essential foods were fixed. The Muslim Family Law Ordinance of 1961 was introduced and to improve women's status. Marriages and divorces required court registration and approval. Minimum marriage ages were set up as 16 for women and 18 for men. If we talk about the results of the social reforms, there was a better education and healthcare was given by the government through literacy rate, though literacy rate didn't improve a lot. Family laws and planning were opposed by the religious scholars, and the houses were also provided to the refugees finally. Now, if we talk about Ayub Khan's efforts to modernize Islam, in the 1962 constitution, Pakistan was declared as a Republic of Pakistan, and due to widespread criticism in 1963, the title was changed back to Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Islamic laws were introduced and the building of cinemas were promoted. The Advisory Council of Islamic Ideology was established to advise the government on legislation. The president was not required to accept the council recommendations, and the religious parties such as Jamaat-e-Islami and its leader Maulana Maududi criticized these policies too much. Now, if we talk about the agricultural reforms, Ayub Khan established a land reform commission. His advisors believed a small subsistence holding were inefficient. So land holdings limit was set to like 12.5 acres minimum, 500 acres maximum for irrigated land, and 1000 acres maximum for unirrigated land. Any landlord could not have more than 500 acres irrigated land with him and 1000 acres of unirrigated land with him. Land exceeding these limits was taken by the government, and the large farms were expected to increase food outputs, and landowners had to find tenants. Tenants cultivated the barren lands, boosting agricultural productivity, and the Indus Water Treaty was signed also in September 1960. So dam, barrages, and linked canals were built. Loans were provided for tubewell installations as well. 75,000 tubewells were installed, controlling waterlogging and salinity. The period was a record crop yield, and it is also known and referred as Green Revolution. High productivity resulted from mechanization, high yield seeds, chemical fertilizers, insecticides, and pesticides. However, powerful landlords retained their fertile land, giving up only poor land to the government. If we talk about the results of agriculture reforms, there was an increase in crop yield and production. Ayub referred these reforms as green revolution, and poor success rate was there in land distribution, however, and modern methods of farming were expensive and rich farmers could only afford them. If we talk about the industrial reforms, private sector was encouraged to start new manufacturing industries by incentives. Export bonus schemes and abolition of business profit tax, stable policies and tax holidays were also given. Loans from Western countries like USA, UK and Germany were also taken. Oil refinery was inaugurated in Karachi. Economic union was formed with Iran and Turkey, which was called RCD, Regional Cooperation for Development. Pakistan Mineral Development Corporation, PMDC, was made for exploration of minerals. There was a second 5-year plan for economic development was also presented from for 1960 to 65. If we talk about the results of industrial reforms, there was a rapid increase was recorded, like 7% of annual growth rate, which was thrice that of India at that time, and 14% increase in per capita income was recorded. But however, 22 families owned 66% of industries and 80% of the banking sector. So it meant that wealth was in few hands only. There was a high economic disparity between East and West Pakistan because most programs were introduced in West Pakistan only, and there was a dependence on foreign aid which was increased drastically. If we talk about the foreign policy of Ayub Khan, he maintained a pro-West and pro-American policy, and Pakistan received significant military and economic aid from the USA. Relations with China also improved after the India-China war in 1962, and Ayub was warmly welcomed during his visit to China. Relations with the Muslim countries also remained cordial, and Ayub Khan initiated cooperation with Turkey and Iran, founding the Regional Cooperation for Development RCD in 1964. Relations with India were tense, culminating in the 1965 war over Kashmir, and subsequently after that Tashkent Agreement was signed, and relations with Russia remained strained, partly due to an American spy plane incident from a base near Peshawar, which was also referred as U-2 plane incident, which we are going to read in the later chapter. Ayub visited Russia in 1965, becoming the first Pakistani head of state to visit Russia at that time. If we talk about Islamabad, the new capital was built. Building Islamabad was very costly, occurring during a time of resource shortages for many Pakistanis. Friends of Yahya Khan in the army and industry profited significantly from the land speculation in the new city. This, had a great widespread resentment that whether a new capital was very important at that time to make or not. Reasons to choose Islamabad. Why Islamabad? The area of Islamabad was chosen because Karachi was deemed unsafe and unsuitable for modern capital, and Yahya Khan wanted the capital closer to the army's headquarters. Karachi was a port city and had significant potential for commercial and industrial development, and the city had a warm and humid climate. So moving the climate capital to the northern region was seen as essential for regional development. And Karachi was an old city with many problems, faced intensified issues due to a larger number of refugees, and also in Islamabad there were all purpose made buildings for all the government offices were also made. Now after that, if we talk about the Tashkent Declaration or Tashkent Accord, it was a peace agreement between Pakistan and India, and it was signed on 10th January 1966. It was signed by Indian's Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri and Pakistani President Ayub Khan. The agreement ended the 17-day war of September 1965 between the two countries, and the Soviet Union organized this ceasefire conference in Tashkent, Soviet Republic of Uzbekistan, in January. The declaration produced a ceasefire and a general agreement to resolve disputes peacefully. The war was over control of Jammu and Kashmir, and it was a continuous, strenuous issue between Pakistan and India since partition. The agreement did not set a date for negotiating a settlement in Kashmir, however. If we talk about failure of Ayub Khan, in 1965 war, neither Pakistan nor India achieved a decisive victory, but the Tashkent Declaration, a peace treaty, was signed in January 1966. Ayub Khan dismissed his foreign minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who then became a key opposition figure, and by 1968, public discontent with the government was widespread. Accusation of vote rigging in 1965 electoral college and presidential elections surfaced. Despite economic improvements, benefits were limited to few people in the country, and rising agricultural production was accompanied by higher food prices. Official celebrations of the decade of development triggered further opposition against Ayub Khan. So in October 1968, students protested, against government in the across the West Pakistan, and Ayub survived an assassination attempt in Peshawar as well. Protest extended to East Pakistan, and Ayub responded with widespread arrests, including Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Ayub's repressive policies united various opposition parties, leading to the formation of the Democratic Action Committee (DAC) in January 1969, and the DAC demanded proper elections and lifting of emergency powers. Ayub Khan eventually withdrew emergency powers and released many political prisoners. Negotiations with the opposition failed, and Ayub Khan resigned on March 25, 1969. So this was the end of the era of Ayub Khan, and then the next General Yahya Khan came into the scene, because on March 1969, General Yahya Khan became the chief law administrator and also took over the country as president, because Ayub Khan didn't give the government to the democratic people or the any political party. He handed over power to General Yahya Khan. He announced that basic democracy had not been a success. There would be a properly elected government, and the one unit system had not worked so there would be no provincial government. So he was committed to bring back the democracy, and there would be one man, one vote policy. 4 provinces of the Pakistan were re-established, and political activity resumed in January 1970, and political parties started the election campaigns for electing 300 National Assembly members. Assemblies had 120 days to draw up the new constitution after making of the assembly, and after 3 days of National Assembly elections, there would be provincial assembly elections. Elections were to be held in October 1970, but due to severe flooding, they were postponed, and elections finally held on 7th December 1970. Results were a shock, and it created further constitutional crisis, which we are going to see in the next video. Thank you so much for your patience, and I hope that these 4 Governor Generals, the eras of these 4 Governor Generals are much clearer to you. Thank you so much.